My name is Will. My name is Will Kirchheimer. I'm a software architect. I work for REI Systems, and which is a firm out in DC. And I also am on the board for Drupal Forge, which was Salim's presentation a little earlier, and a few other things I get around. I also own a co-founder with Salim, WCAG which is just one of many. You don't have to use me. I've got public repositories available where you can go do all the work yourself and run it in your own cloud. But let's all get it done. All right, so I crossed Salim out because I didn't think he was going to make it today. This is my deck from DrupalCon that I gave in Gov Summit about couple of weeks, a month ago. And then they changed the laws about 2 weeks ago. So you're going to see some stuff crossed out. They pushed the deadline back to 2027. The deadline was for organizations that took more than $50,000 from the feds or had a particular, no, sorry, have more than 50,000 users in their base. And they became eligible for DOG punishments and fines starting this month. But that got pushed back. And interestingly, since this is an educational forum, the people who are being put on the hook for why they got pushed back are actually education. They're claiming that education, whether accurate or not, they're saying that education reached out so firmly, saying that the additional costs of this would be too great. So you're going to see 2006 crossed out, 2007 added in there. Oops. How do I get, there we go. As we go through here. Going on with that topic that I just started, which wasn't part of the original presentation. They're saying it was you. I don't totally buy that. But I'd like you guys to talk about that. I'd like you to figure it out. And I'd like you to kind of weigh this question. The economic impact on your, boy, this sentence was hard to write. The economic impact of your accessibility tech challenges on your organization versus the economic and lifestyle impact on your user base. I think that when you spell it out and you say it out loud, then you know that you got to go ahead and finish the work. I know education is actually pretty focused on this, but I want you to think about the historic issues with, for instance, people of color being denied access to bank loans, and then ask yourself if the business school has a program that makes it easy for people to become first-time buyers, and it isn't handicap accessibility. Are we still erecting walls? Are we still locking people out? So take these topics, have fun with it, discuss it, learn from it. Oops. I'm this is my little plug here. I own WCAGscanner.com. We try to make hard compliance testing easy. We focus on complex sites that other people can't test, that are behind logins, that have non-normal URL bases like old JavaScript applications that don't really have a page for someone to go to and check because it's all JavaScript state. And custom agency compliances. Not everybody, different organizations have more than WCAG that they're responsible for. So if you've got a special problem with a special application where you need special activities, my little group will actually make that work for you. And the reason I got started doing that was actually working with Kaplan. Kaplan wanted to be ahead of the game. They wanted compliance, and a lot of their software was on the older side, as we all know Kaplan from getting started and getting ready for college. And they wanted to make sure this stuff worked. And they wanted to make sure it was compliant and useful for people. And so they have complex structures. That's me. All right. Accessibility deficit. It's big. The websites, if you go out there and start running your scans, which I very much do, everybody fails. Does that mean that everybody gets sued? Not necessarily. If you have a little link that needs to be a little better, that's not going to draw the lawsuits. But if you're dealing with information that's actually important to people, then that's where it's relevant. Are you denying someone education? Are you denying someone access to food? Are you denying someone access to your product or sports venue? those organizations need to come to the table and get started and get going. And that's what we're up against. This is a lovely example of something that you're not normally going to catch. So this is I was just pulling in large nonprofits. And so these guys popped up. I'm not familiar with this evangelist, but I ran the scan across it and look at what comes out. The text on the getting through the door is not accessible. Like this is the very first thing that happens when you arrive on the site, and you've got fuzz out, you've got trouble accessing it with the keys, you've got real issues from the moment you arrive. And if you're a regular tester and a regular user, you've probably already agreed to these cookies before and you're not going to see them. Real scanning that goes beyond, did I check if my template has a tag? You would think they'd want the folks to be able to get in. Who are we really serving? The spectrum of disability. So you have visual, like myself, who cannot read a darn thing without my glasses and cannot access my phone in the morning until I put them on, to all the way through a wide variety of color blindness, which is some huge percentage of men. I'm not there yet, and on towards blindness. Auditory deafness and hearing loss. So that's if you have audio triggers, if you are presenting transcripts from your official meetings and things. Let's have a transcript attached to the video of your official meetings. Motor and physical control. Are you making someone dance back and forth across your page all the time to try to access different menu bars? Are there actions that require someone to very carefully hold their hand without keyboard bypasses? These people try very hard to access your site, and you should probably meet them halfway. Cognitive and neurological, so ADHD, dyslexia, autism, brain fog. There are some interesting efforts like dyslexic specific font plugins and whatnot to try to address some of these issues. There's flicker control. How fast are your items moving on the screen? Temporary and situational. So they broke their arm. It's bright outside. You can't see anything with the contrast levels that are out there, and very loud rooms. So who do we want to serve? Well, we want to try to come up with designs or opportunities to serve everyone. And interestingly, you don't have to make every item on the page just completely accessible. There can be other opportunities on the page to access that information. I think there's a beautiful example of that at GSA's.gov site, where you can evaluate how much money you have to spend, how quickly across all these maps. But you don't have to work with this map, and you don't have to be able to engage with this map. All that menu access is right there alongside it. So you can find ways. It doesn't have to all be boring text. It just has to be accessible. Designing for cognitive load. I think the cognitive load, executive decision making, what happen? Am I going to get lost if I click through this button? You didn't tell me what happens if I click this button. I run into that all the time. So moving beyond the most common features that you're going to see in WCAG testing, which is, can I see the text? Is the contrast level too low for people without high definition separation or with color differences, color perception differences? If that text is all gray, that's one thing, but there's more. So minimize friction, reduce animation and motion, provide pausing mechanisms. Can you make that thing stop, please? And use clear, direct UX writing. Predictive patterns. So when you go around a site, it should kind of stay the same. If you're shifting your entire design every time you hit a different agency or a different department, are you still serving your users? Do they have to relearn the site every time they arrive on a page? That's fine if that's what your site is, but if you're trying to deliver information to large numbers of people across a broad spectrum, how about we try to keep things consistent enough so that they can look for the same thing twice? They know where they have to go click that button. Oops. The hidden return on investment of WCAG. So beyond compliance to business case. SEO penetration. I talked about it a little bit with AI. I talked about it again with AI. Okay. SEO penetration. Semantic HTML and perfect heading hierarchies map directly to Google's core web vitals. So they gauge the importance of your content based on good structure. Give them good structure that you decided should be a particular way. AI training and machine readability. All right. So readability wasn't even a concept. Well, there's handicap accessibility reading, website reading. So you get to the page and it's going to read it to you, and you're going to respond to it. I have known blind software developers. There's a whole lot of people out there using a whole lot of systems to move very quickly across content. But we have a whole nother level of AI machine reading coming to the table, which is there's this entire exploding market of robots being sent out to gather content and return it back to people. And those are very much being plugged into handicap accessibility solutions. So you want your robots, when they show up on your website, to be able to read the content just as much as you do the people. And you achieve that very easily by focusing on WCAG standards. And then there's expanding your market. So people want to spend money, they want to use your resources, they want to access your knowledge. And so if you want that information to be able to get out to all these different little niches and corners of the universe, then let's make it easy for it to flow. uh, I nobody ever likes when I try to make puns by capitalizing AI in the middle of things, but I'm trying here. The carbon footprint of accessible DOMs. So, and this seems like such a hard thing to accept as a real item, but when AIs go out and they look at information and they are processing it for you, then those are using a particular number of tokens to process that information, and they are making decisions. Your impact on the whole world as those machines come in and try to read your content is real, believe it or not. And so if you have bad code, if you have messy code, you're actually costing more power. Crazy. No, it's a hard one to wrap your head around, but it's a real thing, especially in this agent of aware bots that go out. You know, your LM Studio goes out and looks at a page to scrape content for you to generate the keywords so you can use. It's amazing. All right. What am I doing here with the script? I think I'm just plugging myself here. My particular application goes beyond simple analytics of WCAG. It also scrapes and analyzes what's going on sites. It's how many scripts are embedded on a particular page. This, I believe, was that religious organization we looked at earlier. And on that single page, it had 101 scripts embedded in it. Amazing, crazy stuff. So mine scoops, it selects which technology is used on which pages, it maps it all out, and it does discovery for you. You can use the other guys. The legal reality. Okay, this is the fun stuff. So there's differences. There's Title II, there's Title III. Two titles, two distinct threats. And I'm going to push that you have responsibility more than threats, but let's talk about the threats so you can go talk to someone else about the threats. Title II, state and local government. Hard deadline. I'm meant to cross out hard and make it squiggly now. The hard deadline. The DOJ mandates WCAG 2.1 AA compliance by this law changed since I created this slide deck a month ago. The deadline is now in April of 2027. A whole lot of people worked really hard to make there actually be a deadline and have it be in 2026. But that just means you have more time. And so let's get it done. So Title III, private sector, the litigation trap, the surge of private lawsuits driven by Nexus Standard. So Nexus Standard we'll talk about in a second. The real issue is you have laws that already apply, that are already real, that can be brought to bear. And then you have the government segment of this, which is requirements by the Department of Justice and changes to your liability. Target 2. So audience interaction. Who is in the Title II crosshairs? So Chicago Public Schools, University of Illinois. I did this presentation up in Chicago. So Stanford, looking at you. Public libraries, courthouses. Education and government at the ring. The Title II, why? The answer, scope of the mandate. The April, oops, that's supposed to say 26 there. Mandate covers internal portals, online learning, Canvas and Blackboard systems, digital syllabi, and PDFs. PDFs are a big one. Third-party liability. Universities hold the liability even for third-party software they purchase. The burden remains on the institution. So if you've got a license for LexisNexis or whatever people use these days, that's on you. Real consequences. Government sued. What does a DOJ lawsuit look like? Well, maybe it's state of Alaska getting sued for failing to provide an accessible digital ballot. City of Los Angeles class action for inaccessible parking ticket portals and parking reservation systems. Oklahoma office DMV mobile app functionally inaccessible to screen readers, missing ARIA labels. If you provide a service, especially one that's mandated, and then better make sure that everyone's able to utilize it. Secret DOJ maneuver. So the Title II interim final ruling that I really thought locked this thing in. I forgot to change these to 7 as well. So they issued a report. They set everything up so that they would be ready to go with all the power to force this in 2026. And then they just announced that they got pushed to 2027. So I apologize for this slide and the changes. So Title III, why? The answer, the Nexus standard and AI processors. The Nexus standard, courts rule that if a website is a gateway to a physical location, it is a place of public accommodation. So that's a law now. That's a law last year. That's ADA access. It's real. And so there's a 40% spike in unrepresented individuals using AI tools to draft airtight federal ADA complaints. There are complex booking, and then an example of people getting sued is seating charts and dynamic inventory, trap screen readers. And so someone comes to try to use Ticketmaster, and Ticketmaster's one that got sued, Uber's one that got sued, Pizza Hut's one that got sued, or sorry, it was Papa John's, I think. If your screen readers are getting trapped during the process and can't get through, then you're not letting in your users. It's the same as locking a door or not having a ramp. Sector deep dive, the HHS mandate. So there are more requirements than just WCAG. Healthcare is not exempt. The enforcement wave. DOJ isn't the only enforcer. The Department of Health and Human Services has issued a massive separate deadline. My headphones are going to go dead in a minute, and we'll have an audio interruption. Compliance deadline. Healthcare websites, patient charting portals, medical mobile apps must meet WCAG 2.1 level AA standards by May 2027. And I think that one I think they could go get you for right now for ADA. So that's your health clinic at your university. That's accessing and making a reservation to see your clinician. The futility of Title III legal defenses. What happens when you get sued? Defense 1, we hired a dev team to fix it. Fails. Requires proving the site is already 100% fixed. Defense 2, primary jurisdiction. We are waiting for the DOJ rules, routinely rejected by courts. And meanwhile, these rules have been around for a decade. Defense 3, ignorance and overlays. Installing an AI widget does not hold up if the underlying code remains functionally broken. I have nothing against the accessibility widgets that are out there, but that doesn't get you through the door. There are tools out there to try to make to drop some JavaScript on the page and try to have it fix your system for you, but it does not get you out of this mess. I did one years ago for Google Translate. Google Translate had some issues in it, and this was 7 years ago, and our school got sued for ADA. And we tried to fix it with JavaScript, but it's not there on first read, so it didn't stand. The harsh reality of litigation, 85% settle. No viable defense because common legal defenses fail in court. So lawyers know this already, and they're getting shut down. Exponential cost. It's especially in this day of AI. Just run the scan, hand the scan to your AI, and tell it to go fix your Drupal template. Drupal's actually remarkably good about being compliant, but maybe your custom templates aren't. So in this age, giving the scan directly to an AI is a viable and realistic resolution to lots of your problems. There's very little to keep this from getting done. The high-risk data trap, vulnerability, the complex intake form. So common sources of liability. Are you missing the labels on the tags? And is your keyboard able to get across all of your forms? Are you able to select each thing? Is there like some age scroller on an input form that you can't access from your keyboard? Primary targets. Anything about buying a home is a major blocker. Anything about purchasing a car is a major blocker. These are real opportunities to get sued. Filing taxes or accessing your tax data, accessing this 1099s. That is a required activity. Can people get in there and find that? Are you scanning mobile DOMs? You're not. So I write these systems. People don't really, they might do 10 or 20 of their pages, but they're not going through and running everything as a mobile device. And there are great products out there that are free, like Backdrop, that will go in and do screen captures of every screen size you want to tell it to. Your manual testers aren't doing full analysis of your whole site. This requires automation for something to get in there and do that kind of activity. So, and that's who your users are. The document dilemma, scaling accessible content. So PDFs, there's lots of them. They go back for ages and they control your information. And are they accessible? I did a project for the Department of the Interior about a decade ago, converting 50,000 PDFs over to becoming accessible. Huge years of people just scanning documents and shoving them in and trying to utilize AI automation to go in. Pre-AI, trying to use OCR applications to go in there and read it and create the metadata for it. It's a real issue. It requires real time and it requires someone to actually budget for it and take it seriously. Public accommodations. Courts treat PDF spreadsheets and decks as heavily scrutinized public accommodations. All of those materials, all of those artifacts, all this times you skip line to try to just shove the PDF on a page in order to not have to lay it out on your website. Those PDFs need to be accessible, and there are tools for it. There's tools for scanning it. There's tools for composing them and checking them. Legacy burden. That's archives, man. The authenticated blind spot where legacy scanners fail. This is me again. Public surface crawling. So things go out there and they look at your public facing website, but did they log in and did they check your forms? And did they go out and check the different variations of your forms? Your students are probably logging in to do practically anything. Are your scanners on the inside checking those resources? Services like mine provide that opportunity to put in login information and to validate particular behaviors. But those are where those are the services that are actually, sorry, Those are the services that are actually going to get you, is because they've already logged in and now they're trying to access a needed service. You protected it and with the login in order to keep out the noise, and now they're inside and now they need to use it. Again, payroll, registration systems, dropping a class, reaching your professor. Authenticated scanning in practice, traversing secure portals, traditional web. Oh, I just told you all that. So find someone who goes inside your website, maybe me. Authenticated skin. I think I'm skipping, trying to navigate this. My cursor keys stopped working. Google. The three-pronged strategy. How do we actually fix this? So there's lots of steps and there's lots of places you can do it. You can do the manual audits, and you have to do the manual audits. Computers are going to find what you tell them to find. Good QA are going to find the things that you didn't think to ask for. Never let a developer test their own accessibility in UX, because we know how it works. The automated scan for broad testing. There's three places. I don't think I do a slide on that. There's three places to test. There's on the developer machine, there's in your deployment scripts, and there's against your production environments. You can fully write those local tests without anybody else getting involved, without me getting involved. And you can fully make those part of your local dev environments. You can fully make them part of your CI/CD. I have open repositories on the net where I show you the code to do that. And you can just make it part of your GitHub, and it goes and it scans whatever you want to set it up to scan on your site. And then you have continuous monitoring. So that's a third-party service out there, like mine, that comes in and scans your websites and issues those reports back to you. So those things that you didn't think to catch, those things that changed, those are what those services are. And a lot of times, a lot of your web contracts they'll limit the liability of the developers to like everything outside the content DOM, but everything people do inside the WYSIWYG is actually the responsibility of your content managers. So that plays into having those third-party systems come in that check not just your developer staff, who hopefully are checking their stuff, but also your content staff, who might be pulled in a lot of different directions. Do not use AI for this. AI is wonderful, amazing, and fascinating. You can use it to fix your templates, but AI is not able to systematically go across and audit rigidly a long list of pages against a long list of rules. This is exactly what AI is worse at. You want to use a certain, and all these scripts exist, have been written to go in there and do this systematically with the same attention to every page as it did to the first one, applying the same rules across the board. So don't use AI for this. You can use AI. You can take that list when you're done. You can give it to AI to fix your templates. Don't try to use it to scan your site. This will expand a whole bunch of words about that, but that's the issue. AI cannot achieve this task yet. And again, AI might tell you your button's fine, and that is bad. So if you've got an alt trap that's not really a decorative image, and it's skipping your submit button because of this, or if I've had AIs deliberately lie in order to get past their task and move forward. So if it's deliberately modifying your submit button by adding that skip aria, then just to get out of the task, that's real. It happens, and they will do it. So don't use AI for that auditing process. Trust but verify. So humans, whatever these scripts are, you've got your report from someone like me, and you've gone and you've given it to your AI, and they've gone and fixed it. Keep your humans involved. Think of automated systems and AI as opportunities to expand your scope of coverage, and less about, can we kick everyone out the door? You're only testing a small fraction of your website right now. I guarantee you that. And by freeing up, by automating tasks, by automating scans, by utilizing the AI, you have the opportunity to expand the quality of your work and the quality of your coverage. I highly encourage that route. Targeted, I've said this enough times. Use the AI to fix your stuff if you want, to help your developers along the way, but don't scan. I'll make this slide deck available if you want these words for conversations going up the food chain to the folks who are here today. Shifting left and scaling up, the logistical nightmare. One of the hardest parts of digital accessibility is taking a massive 500-page audit report and giving it to an engineer. So the way I handle that is I give you the opportunity to do separate scans for different separate groups and have those scans get sent to different engineers or different agencies. So if you've got a website where you've got 30 different teams responsible for 30 different areas of the website, and you send someone a report about the entire thing, that's just useless. It's pure noise. And so there's the opportunity to lock in URLs, lock in subdomains, and then have that information directed to your separate teams. So these things actually get done. I've been on large government agency teams where there's 48 different sites running in the same URL base, each of those with its own unique team. And these reports come in and they get shoved around because, oh, that one's not mine. Not only did you waste all the time of the not only did it take a long time to get it to the person who needed to fix it, but you also wasted hours of people's time while they looked at reports that weren't actually addressed at them. So pick someone like me who actually allows you to isolate that content, send it out to particular emails, and then run that batch every time. But you can do that in your own CDCI, your own deployment cycles. Just don't overload everyone. Come up with systems that allow people to have actionable content. I just told you this. Sorry, I get ahead of my slides. So, so you can choose to trigger things in your internal environment, and you can have things trigger in your own development cycles. You could have an engineering project in your school that goes and builds a system that does a pretty good job of this as a marathon activity. It's all very doable. Keep scanning. Don't just do it once. Have these systems that go through and look regularly and have all of it automated as much as possible so that it actually gets done in great detail. So there's Europe. Europe's not waiting. Europe's already doing all this stuff. So if you're doing business with Europe, maybe your exchange students, maybe your overseas practitioners, maybe your vendors, you still need to do. You've got a whole lot of compliance things. I was really hoping to pull Europe's tail by going over and auditing the European accessibility system websites and finding errors, but they were fine. So it's out there, it's real, it's probably part of an organization your size's responsibilities to make sure they're scanning for these other systems. One more. So WCAG 3 is going to show up. It's and new systems are going to show up. There's there's more than just did I pass a rule, and those systems are going to be coming up. It's more about, are you able to use something? There's new devices coming in. There's vision aid tools beyond trying to game on your MetaQuest or whatever. There's full-on color contrast adjustment systems that will be hitting us any day now, where reality gets color adjusted to people for people. These systems are going to shift. Get it automated. There's going to be scripts and libraries available for it. Be aware. Accessibility compliance is a civil right. This is the law of the land. A massive legal liability an untapped business opportunity for you lawyers out there. There are people, there's a gentleman who has over 300 lawsuits to his name for organizations, and people are going to find those during this, and they should. But during this recent fluster of activity around the WCAG rules that were supposed to come in this month, there were news articles. You can go online and find local TV stations running business awareness pieces on this, so people don't get caught with their pants down. Um, you should do it for the right reasons, but there's going to be legal ramifications if you don't. So I want your people to be manually scanning their content. Oops, wonder which way that went. All right. I want you to be automated scanning for scale. That means hitting your whole site, not just those 150 favorites pages. And I want it to happen all the time. I want to be part of your deployment process. Maybe it's and then your third party verification. Oops, I meant to cross Salim out for this, but he's here. So my name's Will. I'm the co-founder of WCAGscanner.com with my other co-founder, Salim. And I'm a system architect, and he just makes all of these amazing projects happen. Salim is basically like synergy on foot. And if you'd like to reach out, if you have complicated legacy systems that need to be engaged with, we can actually address real complicated issues in a way that I think the other WCAG scanning organizations can't, because they're too big. They're trying to deal with, they're trying to have a product that works for the millions, and I'm not that big yet. Maybe someday. Questions? Probably been talking for the last half hour without my audio on, and I couldn't see the tech test. No, okay.
No. Hi. Thank you so much for that presentation. Salim says, when is the new deadline?
It's next year, same. It's April next year. But deadlines are imaginary. They can come for you today with ADA laws. The big deadline that everyone wants to talk about got pushed back a year, and that's organizations that have 50,000 users and take any federal money. That got pushed back. And there's a second part of that, which is a few months later, which is 5,000, which is every mom and pop church out there, which is just a whole lot of organizations have 5,000 users. Um,
Andrea asks, what do you think about Site Improve? It's another.
they're great. They're great if you want to help fund their yachts instead of a little guy like me. No, Site Improve's great. I think they're a lovely organization. What I try to do is merge your discovery alongside all these other activities. But there's Site Improve's a lovely product, and I have nothing against them. I use them on federal projects all over the place.
Salim also asked, what are the fines associated with this?
I think the numbers we're looking at like 100K here and there, but really civil liability is where they're going to come at you. I think the fines are going to be something we have to see happen in court to really see where it's all going to settle out, and what judges want to do with it all.
It's a lot of money, is what the answer.
A lot more than it's going to take to have your dev team go fix it real quick after a scan. I mean, like a lot more.
I just want to know if anybody here has been sued for WCAG violations in the past or threatened. No?
So I was doing a project for or Jefferson County, somewhere in the country, that got sued after a Drupal launch because of various little JavaScript blocks along the way. Nobody else?
Okay, Kevin said yes too, but not in this institution. No. Yeah, I've heard stories. I just haven't talked to anybody who's gotten like sued and stuff. So
Friend site. Sean also notes in the chat that punitive damages do vary state by state, but usually it's about lawyers' fees and corrective action.
yeah. And you're pushing, well, you've got WCAG scanner there. Um, do you have a demo of that, or have you, like, is
Oh,
this working already, or?
WCAG, let's see what happens if I touch my browser while I'm showing. Um, Welcome to WCAG Scanner. I was not set up to do a demo. Hey, it's WCAG Scanner. You can pop in right now and let's launch a free site, scan, and who's the rival team of Stanford? Is it like you guys have sports teams there with rivals?
Berkeley.
Berkeley?
Berkeley, right? Berkeley, what, .edu, do you think?
Sure.
All right, let's try that. This takes about 30 seconds. We'll see what's up with those Berkeley guys. Um, so I do all my scans for most of
It's
my demos against Europe.
it's
It's
my
Bork and US
it's my
guys.
alma mater, man.
Oh,
Better
all right. Well,
better.
they're doing, your alma mater's doing okay.
Yeah.
They've got a 90% score. They've got some links that look a little like the text might not be quite readable. And this turns up a lot with systems that where people put text in, but they have rotating images. And so like the text looks fine on one image and then looks awful on the next image. Um, Got some heading issues. Not all their H1, H2, H3s are in order. And there's a issue with their, so this is your free little quick demo. If you go into the real system, trying to figure out how to do this without causing trouble for anyone. You didn't see that. Um, so here's my account, and let's go look at, I think this is a demo scan. So yeah, so if we go in here, we can create unique crawls for different parts of the organization. We can create a so if we want to add a new configuration to a crawl, we can define what URLs we want to start on, what patterns we want to include, or what ones we want to exclude. And this is how you define which teams are going to hear about your reports, so you're not flooding people's information. How many pages deep you want to go, maximum numbers of pages you want to go, and how long you want to pause. So I could totally launch denial of service attacks by accident with the system. So we have there, you don't really want to do that to people, especially your DevOps team, because they will come for you. So maybe wait 4 seconds. This is avoid delete buttons. So if you're letting me log in somewhere, better be careful with your sandbox credentials. But you can have it try and avoid delete and log out buttons, and try to allow all the cookie consents to arrive on a page, and you say yes to the consent buttons. How often do you want to scan? Manual, weekly, monthly, and separate login behaviors if you want to go through that. I'm not going to launch one of those scans. Does this one have any? Yes. Okay, so accessibility scans go through and they give your score rates across the whole thing. They also provide, let's see how, I'm not sure how long this was run, but we also have a very helpful thing, which is cross-page patterns. So cross-page patterns are little issues that show up on a whole lot of pages, so you don't get a giant, enormous, like this was terrible. This is, oh, look at all these things you have to scroll through, pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of errors. But so many of those are repeats. We also do a little screen capture of stuff that you see on the page and outline and highlight the rules that are impacted on this particular page. Like this was an issue, and why. But you go over here to cross page patterns and you can get your big wins. So this one's considered critical, and it occurs on a number of pages. So you can go in and get that fixed. And you can get your big scores really quickly. And as you scroll down, you get to, pages that only 2 pages on this whole thing had this issue. Feeds back into the rest of the system down below. And then this is where it gets fun and dorky and everyone fades out. But up here, you can set up autopilot. Autopilot lets you create cron tasks in your own system to trigger jobs. So you can say, I want this. You can have your own system that's going out there and saying, I need to scan right now. Or you can have a developer somewhere that says, I think I fixed everything, scan that. And they can trigger all these commands. So this is a little scan builder where you just select what you want it to do. Um, let's see, there's a lot of tools in there. So you can use whether you want A, double A, triple A, or and best practices. Keep them all, do them all. Just get it done once, spend your money once, and fix all the systems. And then very shortly, you will have PDF scanning in here. The two features that are coming up right now are more about, oh, you can also export these to JSON, HTML, and PDF, and you can send those reports out. And you hit the send report, you can select down from your existing recipient lists. You can CC other people. You can decide what format you want to send it in. I don't currently send out image captures, also image comparisons, because they're massive. I'm still trying to figure out a way to deliver those to people that won't destroy their inboxes. And then you can go back and you can compare your scans, and you can create scans against. Now, this is where it's hard, but amazing. You can do your different discovery scan for your athletic department. You can set who's going to get those emails at your athletic department, and that information is not going to cross over into your academic decathlon folks. And you can set your URLs, and you can set who's going to get those alerts, and you can have it go to those particular development teams. And so it's a weird little tool I made for you, but if you're dealing with large organizations, then that comes into play. It's all about information overload and making sure that the people that actually need it
Yeah, the
actually
one
get the
thing,
information.
there was one client we were working with, and the one thing I want to point out is that this was made for doing continuous compliance. And for that is, it's not just a one-time snapshot that you can go address, but this is a real time. It automatically, not only on schedule, but even on commits. Whenever you commit the code, it can actually build out the
Yeah.
site
You just add
and
that
scan it.
curl command into
Yeah.
your deployment cycle as a get action or something, and boom, you're able to configure what you want to
Yeah.
happen.
So
You
you
can do
get
that on.
continuous compliance, and you get make sure that everything that you're committing, you're getting a report on. And even if you break the compliance, you have an audit trail of when it broke and what broke it and who broke it, and then you know where to go back to and what to fix. Uh,
And this is the discovery page. So as long as we're scanning all those pages, why don't we use that information? And so um, this is, we scanned that page. Now, how many pages? We did a small scan. We found 103 scripts across 3 pages, no forms. We have tech detection, which becomes incredibly, no unique tech. It becomes incredibly important if you have legacy microservices embedded on your pages via JavaScript, which you do. Somebody wrote a widget 12 years ago that they stuck on a library page, and it's sitting there, and you forgot that it's in React. And it's just those sort of widget opportunities, those third-party applications you are still liable for. And so what this does is it scans all these pages, and it creates fingerprints for the tech in use on the page. And so when you have unique odd scripts that stand out on particular pages, it's going to highlight those for you. That's the goal, is to create real discovery that actually feeds back into what you're not going to find as a human being. So look at all these scripts, man. That's all on that one little church site. It's crazy.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think, this is always really helpful to figure out what the landscape is looking like and what's coming down the pipeline. So I know that folks have other sessions to get to. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, but